Hey everyone. Thanks for joining our webinar today. We're so excited to have you. Hi Malay.
Hey,
How
hi
are you
Alexandria.
doing?
Very good, very good.
Nice to see you. Well, I just wanted to welcome everybody to our webinar about generative AI for CPG. We're really thrilled to have you all here. We're going to have a really great session here, and we're going to be exploring how generative AI is reshaping the consumer packaged goods industry. I'm going to give you a quick rundown of AI Palette. We are not your average insights company. Oh, no, no, no. We are powered by a host of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and generative AI tech. Our mission really is to help companies like yours innovate, elevate brand extensions, and uncover incredible opportunities in emerging markets within this space of CPG. What we're doing today is we're predicting consumer trends and concepts. AI Palette is analyzing billions of data points to provide actionable insights. But before we get into all of that, let's just take care of some housekeeping rules. Our webinar is going to last about 40 minutes. It's going to be jam-packed with valuable insights. And throughout our session, just feel free to drop any questions you have into the Q&A section. We always like to make these collaborative and fun. We want to make sure that we answer all your questions before you leave here today. And we do have a live chat feature, so please feel free to use that. Without further ado, we're going to dive into the fascinating world of generative AI for CPG. My name is Alexandria Maruska. I'm the Director of Enterprise Sales here at AI Palette. I have over 2 decades of experience in driving sales for SaaS startups, and I like to call myself a self-proclaimed food and beverage snob. My passion is in all different foods, all different beverages, and my passion for technology really drew me to AI Palette. And I must say that what we're seeing in the CPG industry has really been blowing my mind. Now, I'd like to introduce our Chief Business Officer, Malay Shah. He is a seasoned expert. You guys got to know him. He's at the art and science of business, and he's currently driving new AI revolution at AI Palette. He has over 2 decades of experience in all functions of business and entrepreneurship, and brings his extensive experience into everything he does at AI Palette.
Thank you so much, Alexandria, for this warm introduction. I hope I can live up to how you stated it. But I'm really happy, excited, and thrilled to be here at this webinar.
Thank you. Today, we're going to be diving deep into the world of generative AI. We're going to shatter some of those misconceptions and explore how this cutting-edge technology is pushing boundaries, especially within the CPG industry. We're here to separate myths and bring them to reality, and we want you to offer we want to offer you practical advice to help you get started on the AI journey, because that is so very important. We'll highlight how Gen AI offers specific tailored solutions for CPG companies. We're opening up new horizons and innovation and growth, and we're going to uncover practical strategies and use cases that you can implement right away to drive results. Something else we've got in store, specifically tailored for CPG, though, is a tool that combines the best of generative AI, but I don't want to spoil that surprise just yet. So let's save that for later. So just as I'm going to grab my favorite beverage, I'm going to get comfy with you. Let's embark on this journey together. Now let's dive into the heart of the webinar, generative AI, or Gen AI as we call it. It sounds really impressive, right? Many of you probably heard of it. Some of you may have not. But what exactly is it, and how does it work? So to shed some light on this, I'll turn it over to our expert, our Chief Business Officer, Malay. And Malay, can you please enlighten us on Gen AI? Malay?
Oh, my bad again. Sorry. I think this is something that we want AI to fix. I was speaking on mute. Alexandra, absolutely thrilled again, as I mentioned, to be on the webinar. And if I were to start out, with explaining, generative AI or Gen AI for short, I mean, it is like having a creative genius, living inside your computer. It is all about teaching machines to create new things, right? So we live in this world where there is text, there is images, there is video, there is even code. And how can your computer create each of these items without very detailed, explicit instructions? So let me break it down a bit further, with examples, right? So the first aspect is clearly the text part, which is, which all of us have experienced using ChatGPT, OpenAI, Gemini, and multiple other large language models that we have used. So Gen AI can, of course, analyze vast amounts of text data. It can extract key insights out of the data. It can even generate new content, right? Whether it is writing a story or a poem, all in real time. And imagine, I mean, actually like having an AI assistant to help you do, help you write articles, create summaries, or draft email effortlessly for you. If you were to go further, right? I mean, and then especially this is where it really drives immense amount of productivity in the technology departments of, variety of industries. CPG, of course, is a very large user and a user of tech, and which is where it can be a game changer for developers. It can create, code snippets. It can document code bases. It can create knowledge bases. It can review and even debug the code, and all within a very user-friendly, no-code development environment. So it's actually like having a coding buddy who is always there to lend you a hand. And you bet, I mean, when it comes to images, Gen AI can do all the wonders, right? So whether it is creating the product concepts, or whether it is creating marketing campaigns, or analyzing even images for insights, or even generating synthetic data for training purposes. You can do all the mockups that you need, in a very visual manner, and Gen AI has you covered over there. But Gen AI has also now gotten into the creative part of the industry. So whether it is when it comes to music composition, or whether it is voice generation, or whether it is video editing, and even creating a lifelike avatars, or 3D models. And it's having your virtual studio, right there at your fingertips, and ready to really bring all the creative visions to life.
I think that's really awesome. I mean, my favorite thing about that though is I need to have myself a Gen AI buddy. So how do I get one of those? But really, in essence, Gen AI opens up a world of possibilities across various domains. So thank you for that insightful explanation. And if you can just tell me how I get that Gen AI buddy, I think we'll be on good terms. The science behind AI, now that's obviously very important. So let's shift our focus to how Gen AI presents an exciting opportunity for CPG. The industry is so large and this is such an important technology. So, what can we expect in terms of its impact, Malay?
Yeah, I mean, the numbers are staggering, right? When you look at the impact of Gen AI, and these are all the numbers. And the most interesting part is it seems like we are just at the beginning of this entire upcycle that we are going to potentially witness for many years to come, and potentially even decades to come. So clearly, there is going to be an impact of close to $4.4 trillion. I mean, this is as large as economies like UK or India or Germany or France. I mean, if you think about it, so that's the impact of Gen AI, which is going to drive in terms of driving the productivity improvement. I think the most interesting part over here is the hyper automation that Gen AI can drive. Clearly, we are looking at almost a lot of our day-to-day tasks, about 40% of them, which potentially is a grunt work, can be automated leveraging Gen AI. Also, the entire human interface, with robots is increasing at a very exponential pace, and whether it is bots which are living on your on your computers, or whether those are real life bots. And so there's going to be 100 million humans engaging with robot or robot colleagues also by 2025, and which is just around the corner. Software development, I touched upon it earlier. I think huge amount of uh, productivity improvements in the software development tasks, which can again have a significant impact on your cost of technology development as well. Estimates are that 60% of the software development task will be automated by Gen AI by 26. And
Wow.
overall, what we are all looking at is more than 660 billion dollar of value getting unlocked through Gen AI. So I mean, these are all big numbers talked about by economists, or talked about by firms which are really forecasting or looking at the future. But this is not so much out there in the future. The future is already here. But the important piece is we are just at the beginning of the whole upcycle, and the possibilities are truly limitless when we look at impact of Gen AI on our lives.
Thank you for sharing those numbers. I think they're, to me, they're quite mind blowing. It's clear that generative AI isn't just the future, like you said, it is the present, and it's reshaping industries. And I'm so excited to continue having this conversation about helping reshape CPG. So thanks for shedding the light on the potential here. It really just it holds so well for this industry. As we're talking about CPG, obviously that's why we're here, but Malay, can you elaborate a bit on how the CPG industry is using Gen AI today?
Oh, absolutely. I think if you look at the CPG industry, right, I mean, the industry is all about products and all about consumers. These are all the products that we consume, every single day. But the big challenge that the CPG industry is having is that it is, sometimes one or even several degrees removed away from the consumers, as it works with the whole retail and the distribution channels. And that's why it is always data hungry in terms of really knowing how consumers are using the product, what are they really liking about it, what are the key needs or requirements which are not satisfied by the products which are already available in the market. And the other piece is this industry is also having a very bad reputation of failed product launches, sometimes not being able to understand the consumers or consumer insights in real time, as much as they would like to. Now, this is something which Gen AI is addressing, and that's why it's going to change the landscape of the CPG industry in a big way. So let me give a few use cases, right? I mean, for a few important personas in the CPG industry. Let me start out with consumer insights. So how can again Gen AI help consumer insights function or persona? Is that you can really understand the consumer preferences really, really well. You can understand the market trends, and as we all know, excuse my voice, we have 2 billion people living on Instagram, 3 billion people on WhatsApp, and we are leaving such a massive amount of digital footprint out there that understanding those consumers through the digital channels across so many different digital media, I think is something that would really enable understanding the consumer preferences very well. You can analyze market trends very well. You can gauge what is a consumer sentiment when they talk about a particular brand. You can also prepare a lot of synthetic data for analysis. You can visualize data interactively. So there's a whole host of stuff that happens on the consumer insights front. Now, all of these insights ultimately, as I mentioned, helps you build new and better products. And so when it comes to product innovation and R&D, it is actually aiding in product discovery. It can help you create product concepts, product design, product packaging. You can validate those concepts again in a virtual world, in an artificial intelligence world, as opposed to spending lots of time, money, effort in terms of testing it out in the physical world, or before you test it out in the physical world. You can do your formulation optimization. You can do a lot of concept testing. So it's really fascinating to see, Gen AI playing a very important role on consumer insights and product innovation. But ultimately, as you all know, CPG is also about marketing and getting the message out to the consumer in terms of what your brand really stands for. And there, if you were to really look at using AI generated video commercials, or leveraging generative AI for creating marketing content across so many different channels, or A/B testing of ads, or content ideas, or even doing personalized marketing at at a massive amount of scale. I think, and then finally, not last but not the least, is also, marketing department is always keen to understand what the competitors are doing, and so how can you do the competitor research, quickly and efficiently. So yeah, these are all the possibilities of Gen AI again within the CPG industry, and as we mentioned, I mean, it's going to transform every single function within every single industry, and CPG is of course going to reap a massive amount of benefit leveraging Gen AI.
I love it. Thank you for breaking that down for us. I think it's just so important to really understand how it will help in different areas within the industry. My next slide is all about, and question is really, how can professionals in consumer insights leverage the capabilities of Gen AI?
Yeah, so first, we did talk about market trends analysis. So with generative AI, consumer insights team can uncover nuanced preferences. And as you know, consumer insights team, typically look at data from so many different sources, whether it is what's happening in social media, what's happening on e-commerce channel, what's happening, in food service, what's happening, in terms of the scan data. And now you are able to combine all of it together, aggregate together, and then identify emerging consumer trends and significantly reducing your time to market. One example which is out there in the public domain is Coca-Cola, again, utilizing AI for, marketing analytics to gain insights into consumer preferences for, effective targeting. We have sentiment analysis, right? So you are also able to identify how your consumers and what are the emotions and attitudes associated with your brand. Or can you really identify, again, detect early signs of potential PR crisis, and promptly address any negative feedback, which may be something that an early warning signal that you are able to capture. And finally, synthetic data generation. So with generative AI, teams can create synthetic data which almost mimics real world customer behavior. You can drive virtual testing through that. You can do optimization through that. And so, other example I would give is an eBoost, which is an energy drink company which created digital twins of its customers using synthetic data. So what it allows the retailers and brands to actually simulate the customer interactions and feedback during the product design process itself. So yeah, these are all, I mean, few examples that I thought I'll share on the consumer insights in terms of the possibilities of or not the possibilities, but of how the generative AI is already being used in this particular function in CPG industry.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Thank you for providing that example of eBoost too. What a creative way to use Gen AI. It's really amazing to see how Gen AI is revolutionizing consumer insights, but also, as you mentioned before, for marketing, for research and development, for innovation. And it's so great to see this. So thank you so much for sharing these insights. And moving on, marketing teams. I feel like they're the ones really leveraging Gen AI, like you had touched on a little bit before. Can you elaborate a little bit on how marketing teams are truly leveraging Gen AI?
Yeah, so we have AI-generated marketing campaigns, and I think the couple of examples I want to share. One is that of Kraft Heinz, where they actually use generative AI to create, ketchup-themed images, which prominently featured, their iconic bottle shape and logo as well. And then this was a campaign which was a follow-up to their previous initiative where participants were creating their own ketchup images. So really, I mean, creating those product concepts, right from sketches, I think is a wonderful way to leverage Gen AI. But I think the other one, which I was super excited at the time that this was launched, was an ad campaign which Mondelez launched in India, where they leveraged some of the Bollywood superstars like Shah Rukh Khan, who is equivalent of, let's say, George Clooney in the Hollywood industry, is to have him talk about the local businesses in a particular area, And it would have been impossible for Mondelez or for even Shah Rukh Khan to do like 100,000 such ads. But they, because leveraging Gen AI, they were able to personalize this and have this campaign being launched in different parts of the country where those names were kind of integrated within the video advertising itself. So an amazing amount of creativity again over here in terms of driving personalization at a scale, again leveraging Gen AI.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that. I feel that the marketing landscape is being very well shaped with data driven precision based on these examples. So I appreciate you unraveling those captivating insights. I'd like to learn more about R&D teams. Like when you envision R&D teams, you're envisioning people with aprons and master chefs, drumming up different creation. But what are they doing with the AI? Like how are they leveraging it? So we're taking it a kind of a different direction here. So can you share a little
Yeah.
bit about or elaborate on R&D teams?
Yeah, I love the imagery of the master chefs and drink masters, and really cooking up very innovative recipes or product concepts, in the labs that they work on, and sometimes it's very hard to imagine that, hey, how would that set of professionals be leveraging AI? And again, that's already happening in the sense that whether it is discovering new product opportunities or by analyzing the market trends or consumer preferences. And one example I would like to give here is San Miguel, for example. When it came for them to create some really nice packaging innovations for holiday season, especially during Christmas, again they leveraged Gen AI to do that. But I think the important piece here is drawing inspiration, from other industry verticals as well. And I think if you were to really look at Nestle KitKat as and especially in the US market, we all know KitKat innovates, especially a big time on the flavor side in markets like Japan. But in the US, they actually drew a lot of inspiration from bakery as an industry to really look at what new flavor innovations they can drive. And they, of course, had a portfolio of concepts, which again, were being tried and tested by their in-house R&D team. And the idea was to really bounce off each of those product concepts to see, which will really resonate well with consumers, right? Will consumers really love it, when they launch it? And I think, in fact, I'm holding one KitKat, blueberry muffin, which was launched using Gen AI, where they actually drew inspiration from blueberry muffin as a flavor, and then bounced off, all the flavor innovations that they were trying in the US market against some massive amount of billions of data points, and they could come up with this and with this innovation, on a one afternoon, rather than chefs having to toil their way in terms of trying out every single product concept and then going to the market and testing and seeing whether it will really work in the real environment or not. So a brilliant example of how Gen AI is helping launch products faster, provide consumer insights much faster, provide inspirations much faster. And I'm sure, I think those folks can would really love if, as it drives hyper productivity for them.
I love the blueberry muffin Kit Kat. I have to say, it's one of my favorite. My children are always asking for it, which, they can't have sugar every day. But what I love about that story is that the innovation of it and what you shared about the condensing the timeline of an optimization of the development process is just it's so critical. What flavor are we going to get next? Malay, what are some of the benefits that companies can expect to gain from incorporating Gen AI? I mean, I can come up with a few in my head based on what you've already talked about, but I'd like to hear the audience would like to hear from you. Like, what can these companies expect to gain?
Yeah, and I think while we talked about the billions of dollars of productivity savings and trillions of dollars of impact on the economy, I think narrowing it down to the CPG industry, we can make it a lot more real in the context in which the industry really operates, right? And I think if you really look at one of the biggest problems that the industry is having is anemic growth. I mean, even like a few percentage point of growth is very, very hard. And Gen AI can help you bring products a lot more faster, and those are very critical for innovation standpoint. The conservative estimate again from one of the consulting firms says that the CPG industry would be able to drive revenue growth of anywhere from 3% to 5% improvement over what their current growth rates are, and which is huge, right? Practically, it could mean that the industry growth rate could double in terms of the driving the revenue growth. So I think that is just one part on the revenue growth. But the other part is the cost savings. I mean, think about the industry having, notoriously infamous for getting its product launch wrong in the market. When you think about, I mean, the estimates range from anywhere from 70 to 90% of the products which are launched are a failure, and to even think about, I mean, to think upstream in terms of the whole product launch life cycle, there are only a very few amount of products which are in the innovation pipeline which actually hit the shelf. So the failure rate is, if you think about all the work which is happening upstream, is like far, far higher. And so the cost benefit in terms of getting the product success rate right is going to be a massive amount of benefit. Like PwC, companies like PwC have been saying that it can actually help slash cost by as much as 20%, and this will be huge, especially in a time when the inflationary pressures were already high on a lot of CPG companies from a sourcing perspective. And ultimately, it's all about time and time to market, and so time is money. So clearly, there are savings there. And then there are other benefits that one can imagine, in terms of a better quality of decisions, on sustainability and so on and so forth. But clearly, I think on CPG industry, the two big takeaways for me are, I mean, one is of course driving the industry growth and then getting the cost down. I think those would be really big for the industry.
Thank you, Malay. It seems like the possibilities are truly endless with Gen AI. It's clear that it has the potential to revolutionize the CPG industry and drive that unprecedented growth and efficiency. Thank you for sharing that with us. Okay, so now as we're continuing to talk about Gen AI, we should also delve a little bit deeper into the entire Gen AI model. Like, what are the various approaches to Gen AI? What are some potential use cases? What are some applications of it? Let's talk about how to get started. What is an approach that one would take, Malay?
Yeah, of course. I mean, let me break it down for you. I know we talked a lot about the why of Gen AI. I think we should now talk about the how, because this is where the rubber hits the road, right? So if you were to think about Gen AI, there are multiple approaches, and each of these approaches have a cost element associated with it. There is a cost in terms of the investment, and it is also the time to market as well, right? So those are the two different areas that one should keep in mind. But I think the first approach, which is the most simplistic approach, is taking the prompt approach or prompt engineering approach. It's like having a chat with Gen AI and giving it a starting point or question, right? So for instance, if you want to write a story about a pet, you could prompt it with with a statement like, hey, write a story about a pet or a dog who goes on an adventure in the forest, right? So this is all about the prompt engineering, leveraging, of course, the large language models underneath that. So that's the easiest and the fastest approach. Most organizations have adopted this to I would say smaller or larger extent already. But there's other approach, which is RAG, which stands for retrieval augmented generation. So this approach is almost like having a massive library available at your disposal in terms of what kind of questions would you want to ask and what kind of answers you would want to provide. So it's almost like retrieval augmented generation is augmenting what a large language model would give us as an answer, but combining it with your own knowledge base. So that's another approach, which is of course is again becoming quite common. And the third one is, of course, parameter efficient fine tuning. Now, this is when when this is more of an intricate approach, which involves crafting, highly specific prompts, tweaking the AI model to get the desired results. And it's almost like giving, the detailed AI instructions, or giving the AI the detailed instructions and adjusting its settings to optimize the outcome. So, for example, if you want to generate a vegan chocolate cake recipe, you would provide a prompt, and then, basis the answer that you get, you would fine tune the model in terms of prioritizing, let's say, healthy ingredients in that particular recipe that you want. So these are the three approaches, and of course, the fourth approach, which I've not put it out here, is actually building out the large language model yourself, which, of course, very few non-IT companies or non-tech companies would go down that approach, because it typically costs 40-50 million to build out a large language model, which are also becoming more and more complex, with billions of data points being added and trained on that particular side. But yeah, these are the three different options which are out there, and of course it increases from left to right as you go. It increases the cost and the time to market, but also improves your accuracy and gets you a better farm, increasing better and better results.
Thank you. So technically, a lot of these problems do seem like they have to do with the context. Can't companies just, let me rephrase that. A lot of these problems, like, they do have a lot of, what should I say? There's a lot that you can do to address them, but it just really, it could be very expensive. So they companies can build generative KPI capabilities in-house, correct?
Yeah. So, think of, if I were to give an analogy, it's on one end of the spectrum, you are making life extremely easy, right? You are providing the whole chatbot experience or a chatbot interface to the end consumers, and who can ask any question. They will get the data, they will get the reasoning, they will get extrapolation of each of those results, and it can do tons of other magical things that we talked about earlier, right? Like generate code, generate text, generate images, and so on and so forth. But when you actually see underneath that, right? It is almost like a duck paddling away, vigorously, to keep floating, or to keep moving forward on a lake, right? So when you look at what's underlying that, what powers the technology, there are so many different layers, and I'll talk about a few of those. The idea is not to scare you away, and with what powers that particular technology, but I think the first and foremost piece in any Gen AI application is data sets. So it could be your own data sets, it could be the data sets that you might have purchased, or the data sets that you get from your partners. And this could be across text, images, videos, reports. It could be documents. It could be structured data, CSV files. It could be databases. It could be data lakes or data warehouse solutions, or it could be even be another large enterprise system which could be available on cloud or enterprise, right? So that becomes almost like an underlying layer. And then of course, the AI or the Gen AI comes when you are training, on top of these data sets. So for that, of course, you would need GPUs if you are going down the path of training your own data sets, let's say leveraging GPUs from NVIDIA's, right? Or building your own machine learning libraries. So there are multiple of those. I would say the infrastructure layer that comes in. Now, what has happened is the foundation models from ChatGPT or OpenAI have made it a lot more simpler, and there are multiple foundation models which are already available in the market. From Cohere to Meta to Jurassic Labs to Anthropic, to Stability. So you can all decide whether you would want to leverage those foundation models, or actually build your own ML infrastructure layer. And then on top of that, of course, you need to train your machine learning algorithm models. If you decide to go down the path of leveraging RAG method along with the foundation models, then you need to combine those two pieces, and hence you need an orchestration layer to bring those two pieces together. You would typically need a vector database and a vector embedding model. You might need a front end service, because ultimately all of these services will get consumed by the consumer in form of an interface. So you need to build chatbots, or you need to build the UI layer using Streamlit. You might have some of the virtual assistants that you may use. So I think the small point over here is that, hey, if you want to build Gen AI application, these are all the layers that you will typically need. Now, the option, of course, is you can go out and build all of it yourself, or there are elements of this layer that you can outsource, or you can purchase on a transaction model basis, and then start leveraging the capabilities from these models. But yes, to really put a full-fledged Gen AI application, you will likely need many of the services which are listed over here across multiple layers, and then really bring it together to be able to provide like a super clean, simple interface and a great experience for your consumers.
Well, there is an argument for build versus buy, and it's something everybody should be aware of and something to be expecting with Gen AI. But as you mentioned, you need to work across so many technology layers, which for me, just looking at this slide is overwhelming and complicated. And all that being said, what are some of the challenges associated with going down that Gen AI path, besides the
Yeah, so
obvious, the expense?
yeah, so I'll mention that there are, of course, complications. One complication that I touched upon is the whole, the complexity of the technology stack. But the Gen AI applications, there are also a lot of watchouts that companies need to keep in mind, because um, you know it's not an easy path. For example, you like contextual responses. How do you get contextual responses, to the questions which are being asked? Some of the large language models are known to hallucinate quite a bit, because they're trained on generic data, which is, let's say, on the web, and across billions of data points, and they may not understand the full context of the domain in which you are operating. So one needs to watch out for those hallucinations and not use those data to make critical business decisions. You need to, when you train and build your own Gen AI layer, you need to have the data completeness and the recency part, because I think this is another challenge that a lot of OpenAI um, you know solution like ChatGPT 3.5 or 4.0 is built on data sets which are as old as 2021 or 22. Now, you want to have the agility in the market as a CPG company, and so the data recency becomes an important aspect. And the other important piece is the cost, because this entire model of Gen AI is using tokens, and we know that even few tokens could cost quite a bit in terms of the dollars. And some of the when you do like a long chain set of tokens, then your cost, even on a complex query where it is then distributed into thousands of other smaller queries, can run into thousands of dollars. So you need to keep all of this into account in terms of making a decision, in terms of which are the parts you want to leverage and which are the parts you want to potentially source from the market.
Sounds like there's a lot, obviously, on the tech side, the cost, skill sets, having your own data to manage, and just the text complexity. If you have a giant budget, it sounds like sure that would be that would be great to be associated with this and have the time to manage it. But again, time is money. Who has the time? Who has the money? Who has the budget? But if you did, that could make sense. But again, most don't have the time, they don't have the giant budget, and they're asked to do so much more with so much less. So, all that being said, how should someone go about selecting a solution like this?
Yeah, so there are various degrees of pre-built solutions that I talked about, right? I mean, if you have a great technology capability in the organization, there are lots of open source models available, from LangChain to Streamlit, to other machine learning libraries that you can all put together in terms of building your own Gen AI capabilities. Or you can leverage, hyperscalers like AWS or Azure, in terms of leveraging some of the the pre-integrated, pre-packaged services that you get. Or you can also look at some of the SaaS solutions like FoodGPT, which are there in the market, which comes with a fully built integrated stack, but it also comes with data which is very, very specific to food and beverage category or as an industry, which serves the CPG industry quite well. So again, there are variety of pre-built solutions, as I mentioned, and hence you need to take that into account to decide whether you do everything yourself or whether you leverage some of the tool sets which have already been pre-built in the market.
Thank you. But the one thing that really got me going right there was FoodGPT. So can you please tell me more? Is it something similar to ChatGPT? What is this FoodGPT thing?
Yeah, so FoodGPT, operates on the same principle as ChatGPT, right? I mean, it is that same simple chat interface that one can get, but it is specifically tailored for food and beverage industry. It is like having your own personal assistant, for food innovation, right at your fingertips. So it of course uses advanced language models, but it is also powered by artificial intelligence. It's powered by some of the natural language processing, and to provide all the relevant and accurate information, which is all referenceable just in a blink of an eye.
That's really amazing. So can you give us some examples of what FoodGPT can do?
Sure. Um, let's say you have your own company data. You have data, in terms of the market research that you might have done, or you might be doing a certain sales forecasting in the categories in which you are operating. Or you would have lots of research information and the science papers that you have put together. So let's say there is a ton of company data that you are having now. AI Palatine company, for example, brings in a lot of data sets ranging from what's happening on social media, what's happening in food service space, what's happening in e-commerce channel, what's happening in the search space, so on and so forth. Now you can combine all this data together and leverage the power of large language models which is out there, to create to create faster research, right, in the category and in which you are interested in, and create product concepts much faster. You can create a summarized version of insights. You don't have to look at 300-page report. You can actually just get a summary of it in 200 words, and you can put an exec summary together. You can generate your own research report using this own data. You can create your own marketing content. You can create what is the winning food hypothesis around it. So it is, again, as I mentioned, it's like a suite of capabilities that you get again in a very simple interface, but it's all powered at the back end with all the data and all the other layers of technology that I talked about earlier, to provide that simple interface to drive whole host of capabilities at the fingertips.
I love it. Sounds like FoodGPT is indeed revolutionizing the way food innovation is approached. I'm excited to see how it continues to make waves, but I'm also really hoping one day maybe I could have my own personal chef GPT. Wouldn't that be great? But here's a question for the audience. What is that one burning problem, that one use case that continues to cause you pain every single day, that you would want Food GPT to take away from you, to take away from you forever, in fact? We would love to hear your thoughts via the comment section here.
Yeah. So I think while that trickles in, Alexandria, let me give a quick view in terms of how Food GPT is different than Chat GPT, right? And
Thank you.
sorry, Alexandria, am I audible?
Yes, I said thank you.
Oh, yeah, sure. Sorry about that. Yeah. So uh, if you were to do any search on ChatGPT, we all know that it is trained on massive, vast, open repositories like Wikipedia, books, knowledge articles, so on and so forth. So it can, when you ask a certain question, it can do a brilliant job at generic tasks like composing, like an email or a poem. But when it comes to understanding the intricate nuances of food and beverage industry, it falls a bit short over there. And that's where the food gpt which comes in, which is actually trained on more than 62 billion data points, which are very specific to CPG, whether it is menus, whether it is recipes, whether what recipes, what ingredients can come together, whether it is e-commerce, whether it is brand positioning, so on and so forth, or whether it's all about the culinary cravings that you are having. And the other piece that, if you can see, right, and we're just trying to put one example side by side, the other big challenge with something like ChatGPT or multiple other models is that they are trained on data sets before 2022, or in some cases even before 2021, which means that it will not be up to speed with the latest events and trends post post 21 or 22. And we all know that the world of CPG, especially the consumer trends, are changing really, really fast. So the food GPT actually gets trained on a monthly basis. It is most refined, and so the result that you see, for example, over here, takes into account all the data which is available all the way up till Feb 2024. And yeah, the last but not the least, it removes the hallucination problem. And because now it is able to give you the references to the data sets, and so you can go back and then double click and then get all the backing, which is very critical, especially when you are making investments worth hundreds of thousands of dollars in a new product innovation or a concept. So overall, this is where food gpt stands out. It gives you all the detailed insights. It gives you the data backing. It's the most recent data, and it's meant specifically for the CPG industry.
This is great. It sounds like Food GPT is the real deal when it comes to understanding specifically food and beverage industry. On slide 12, you talked a bit about how build the Gen AI stack. So how is Food GPT addressing all these layers in the Gen AI stack, such as customer experience, guardrail and security, LLM selection, data integration, ML services, etc.?
Yeah, so great point. And I think when someone looks at a solution like food gpt, they get everything right out of the box, so they don't have to build a new application or a new UI layer. I mean, that is available right out of the box, out of the gate. The most important part, it is trained on FNB domain data, so you even don't have to spend weeks or days or months to train, and to train and create the models. It's already trained on FNB model. And on top of that, you also have the whole enterprise grade security, which is available, which is all ISO compliant and so on and so forth. The most important piece in the AI world is the so one is the whole data privacy, and you want to ensure that your data is not leaking into the into the public domain or into the large language models. So you need those guardrails in terms of the security and privacy, so which is also available with food gpt. But I think the most important piece here is all other layers, right? So whether it is data ingestion, whether it is orchestration, having the right LLM being chosen over here, all those is pre-built and already available as part of the full stack, such as food gpt. And if I were to just go to the next slide, and maybe I'll just explain the data security part over here as well. So it is available in a private data environment for the clients who can then work with their own data sets, which is not exposed to the to the other parts of the technology architecture. And then again, you do get vector databases and vector embeddings, which allows you to perform like a super quick research and get all the right outcomes leveraging Gen AI. So it is meant for enterprise grade security, and it has all the guardrails available for clients to ensure that they don't have to think and worry about those pieces when going out and running their own business.
That's great. That's such an important piece, and thank you for explaining that. We're almost nearing the end of the webinar, so I just wanted to ask where you think are the opportunities with Gen
Yeah,
AI.
so the Yeah, no, I'm super excited. I mean, the possibilities with Gen AI are massive. They are limitless. I mean, if I were to, qualify it in one single statement, but getting it right and when you put it into practice, that's where it gets real, right? So what can generative AI do in terms of innovation and efficiency? I mean, it's not just about doing things the way they've always been done, but and it's not only about doing it faster, but it is completely new way of thinking. It's a new business models altogether. It's like having a brainstorming session with the smartest mind which is out there. So it's also about speeding up the whole product development, and it's like hitting the fast forward button. So no more long waits to see if your idea is going to work out or it will get stuck. It can Gen AI will help you turn out newer products at a much faster pace than we have seen before, and that's what the consumers are demanding as well. There is Gen AI for marketing in terms of running campaigns at a much lower cost with a very high degree of personalization. And then yeah, so I think here's the thought, right? I mean, while Gen AI is cool and all, but what's interesting is even something specialized like for our industry like FoodGPT. So that could be a real game changer. Having an AI that really understand your domain really really well. So yeah, so the future looks pretty exciting with AI, and it's not about just the tech, but how we use it, and how we deploy it. So I'm hoping that you got some insights not only in terms of the use cases, the technology, and the path forward, and the gotchas that you need to watch out for. But yeah, this is all I think of, and I'm like super excited about application of Gen AI in the CPG industry.
Thank you, Malay. This has been incredibly insightful. I've learned a lot today, so I appreciate you. And I just wanted to thank the audience for being here as well. It's always time is money, and we appreciate you taking the time to be here with us. We did receive quite a few questions, so I'd like to move on to the questions now. If Malay, you're ready to take on a few of these before we have a few minutes left. Are you
Sure. I
ready?
think we may be running out of time, but we can certainly take a few questions.
Thank you. The first question is by Jake. He says, "Thank you for this wonderful presentation. It was really eye-opening. And we have already deployed some basic Gen AI initiatives, and they use GPT, excuse me. How do I get started?" He says.
Yeah. So I think it's ultimately Gen AI is all about being clear on the use case that you want to address. Whether you and we did talk about multiple use cases across consumer insights, across innovation teams, across R&D, across marketing, and so on and so forth. So I think the first step is, of course, what problem you are trying to solve. I think is the first part, and then the second part is, of course, you know looking inside out in terms of the capabilities that you want to leverage inside the organization, and the capabilities that you want to work with partners around the world on the technology front, and then ensuring that you are getting all the right outcomes that you are looking to get. I think the most important piece is that one would encounter is on the data and the accuracy and the completeness, and the machine learning algorithm model. So I would definitely request the teams to really pay more attention to those aspects. But I think it will all get started with what use cases that you're trying to solve for, and then you can work backwards from there on.
That's great. Thank you. Our second question comes from Michelle. Michelle is a chef, and she is a new founder of a beverage brand. And she asked, "How would you ensure data security of the uploaded data? Wouldn't we want it fed into open AI or other foundational model, can FoodGPT interact with my data sets without training its system or passing it to competitor systems?
Yeah, no, I think it's a brilliant question. And I think this is a question on mind of a lot of our enterprise clients as well, where the data security is top of the mind issue or top of the mind concern that they have. So the way we have designed our entire system, so a couple of points, let me back it up. There are models, OpenAI and even Gemini, have been now designed for enterprise, which means that, there are guardrails in terms of data not leaking into and training the whole platform. So I would definitely advise you to use enterprise version as opposed to using, the version which are available for public consumption. So that's number one. Number two, when you work with someone like, let's say, FoodGPT or a solution like FoodGPT, the way it works is there is clearly um, you know the second party data sets which, let's say, AI Palette is bringing to the table. So those data sets become available to you, right out of the gate. But you can also upload your reports in a private data stack, in a private data environment, which means that those reports or those data sets are only available to you, and when the queries are being run, they are only run on your data sets, right? So it's a private stack environment, and it is all built with an enterprise grade security in mind on some of the largest public cloud systems. So that's something which is only available to you, and it doesn't pass it on to the competitor systems as well. And one other option for some of the other enterprises where, let's say, you can have multiple data feeding into your data lake, and then you building the whole Gen AI capabilities on top of it, which of course is a longer process, takes lots of investment and time and effort, and you need to have a very large IT backbone to be able to do that. But that's also another alternative as well. So yeah, there are multiple options out there, but the concern that you mentioned is absolutely a top concern that most of our clients have as well, and you should definitely test it out and pay attention in terms of how the data is being stored and consumed and used in motion and so on and so forth.
Thank you, Malay. Our next question is by Damien, who, kind of funny, he is also a self-proclaimed food and beverage snob, but he asked if a company has intensive data sets, which would require significant scaling up in future, would you still go for buying instead of building?
Yeah, I think I partly addressed that question, but like, let's say if I were to extend the question to even thinking of, like, let's say, building, building like your own large language model, I think that question is really hard for most CPG companies because I don't think, CPG companies today are thinking of investing like 40, $50 million in terms of like building out the whole, their own LLM, right? So the best solution is to, of course, leverage what LLMs do, but then combine the large language models with your own data sets so that you get the best of the both worlds, right, at a much lower cost and a much faster time to market. So that's the approach that we recommend to the most companies. And of course, I think scaling up is of course infinitely theoretically possible in terms of as you leverage a lot of the public cloud infrastructure and so on and so forth. So yes, I mean it will ultimately depend on your cost consideration, on your time to market consideration, and your capabilities. But clearly, the option is to not go at the extreme end of the spectrum, but to leverage the best of the world capabilities in between.
Malay, we're running out of time, or we are out of time, but there was one last question that we need to address before we get off this webinar. How can I see FoodGPT interacting with my existing data, and how do I proceed with that? That's by Christine, and she's based out of Chicago, Illinois.
Hey, hi, Christine. Yeah, I think that's a fair question, Christine. So you can, I mean, if you need to look at the demo of how FoodGPT works, I mean, you can always reach out to info@aipalette.com. The team could actually demonstrate, how you are able to leverage the power of Gen AI not only on the third-party data sets, but also on your data sets. Maybe we can, upload like a few sample reports or see and point, certain databases to FoodGPT, and then you can see the outcomes. So, but yeah, I would recommend you reach out to info@aipalette.com, or even Alexandria, who is based in Chicago. She can help you as well, and we can take it from there.
Thank you, Malay. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. I hope you had an insightful webinar with us. And of course, there were some questions that weren't answered. We'll answer those and we'll follow up with everybody post-webinar. So have a great day and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Thanks, Alexandria. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Malay.